Hey you guys, this is Jeremy Mateo with In the DAW. Welcome back. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the brand new PSP Audioware Nexcellence. This is a Spring Reverb emulation, and they have a Spring Reverb box emulation already, but this is their newest one, and I really want to dive into it, considering that I just did a video talking about my own Spring Reverb box. So what we're going to do in this video is compare it to the old one, check out the new one, and compare it to the actual Spring Reverb box that I own. So without any further delay, let's just jump straight into it. All right, guys, so let's take a quick look at Nexcellence. That is the top one right here, as you can probably tell. Right off the bat, I think the UI looks really cool. You have the feed section, which controls the unit, so it's basically acting like a bypass. You have your input gain, your pre-delay, and you have 3 different spring modes you can choose from. You can have 1 spring, 2 springs, or 3 total springs. This also has your split setup. You have your spread control, which basically spreads all the springs into the left and right stereo image, MS, which splits it into the middle and side, and then split, which basically takes it and splits it left, right. They all sound a little bit different. To me, the spread is really cool though. You have your color control, which controls the overall reverb coloration. It's basically the EQ control for the reverb itself. You have your decay time, which controls the length of the reverb, but it doesn't actually control the length of the reverb in a linear fashion. A lot of reverb plugins will say this lasts for this long. This is a Spring Reverb box emulation, so the decay time just basically tightens up the springs to last for a shorter time. We have your mix control, which allows us to have a wet-dry blend, and then we have our output control. Keep in mind that all PSP Audioware plugins have analog saturation, so if you drive it really hard, you're going to have some coloration in the signal. At the bottom, you have your limiter, which basically controls the amount of limiting you're going to have on the incoming signal. This controls how wide you're going to have the incoming signal being. So for this case, because it's a mono guitar, I just set it up at 0, which is mono. We have our control for the reverb itself. We have sparse, dense, and shiny, and these basically control how the algorithm is going to create the reverb sound. Sparse is going to fit in a dense mix. Dense is going to fill up a mix, and shiny is going to have a lot of high frequencies. We have our high pass filter, our low frequency shelf, our mid bell, and our high frequency shelf right here. Then we can have left-right swaps, which basically swaps the left and right signals. We have an output width control and a balance control, which basically is a pan. That's all you really need to know about Nexcellence. It has a very simple UI and it's really easy to pick up and use. Now at the bottom, we have the PSP Spring Box. This is a plugin that I've had for years. I really like this plugin. I actually bought it years ago because at the time I was switching between interfaces to the console and I wasn't able to do the setup with the Spring Reverb box that I use. So this was my alternative. This has a high pass filter, presence control, dampening control, and a cool thing is you have an A/B so you can have 2 completely different settings and just swap between them. We have timing and trim, which is your input trim. We have 2 different mono to stereo springs and 2 different stereo to stereo springs. Our bypass, diffusion, spread, and panning and balance. And then we have a knob for the dry and the wet, which is really cool because it allows you to have some fine-tuned controls over the unit itself. Now, with that said, these are both really good reverbs. The biggest thing that I want to do is test it out versus a real Spring Reverb box, though. I find that Spring Box is a very hi-fi style sounding Spring Reverb, and Nexcellence is more of a studio style Spring Reverb where it has a sense of character, but it also fits in pretty much anything. And Spring Reverbs tend to have a very metallic sound. So if we go for a section in this song where the guitar is kind of just jamming out, we can really hear the coloration of the Spring Reverbs come out. So let's find a spot where it'll be best for these examples. Yeah, I think right there might be good, but let's see where this transition comes in. Yeah, that might be perfect. So what we're going to do is play that section. Now, the first thing I want to do is listen to the Spring Reverb box itself, the real reverb. Let's solo this up and take a listen to it. First of all, you notice that it saturates because I drove the output of the headphone jack as high as I could. I probably got a little bit of distortion in there, but it has a nice coloration, but it also has a very metallic sound. You can almost hear the plate resonating. Let's see if we can get a similar sound out of the Springbox. Now, it does have a similar sound. It sounds like a spring reverb, but it kind of sounds like the springs are a little too loose. They're wobbling a lot, right? Let's compare that to the real spring reverb. You kind of hear a subtle spring, but what you mostly hear is resonance from the box itself. So that's where Nexcellence is going to come in. The first thing I'm going to do is set this to be mono because we're going to compare this to the mono spring box. Let's see how Nexcellence sounds. Right off the bat, you hear a lot more coloration from Nexcellence. It has a much more dense sound, and I'm even going to make the dense algorithm be the one we're going to choose from. Let's change the way that it's setting up its spring set, and we're going to increase the decay time just by a little bit, reduce the high frequencies, and boost the mids. I want to see if we can get this to sound as spring-like as possible. Now, a really cool thing is that when I drove the input, you can really hear the saturation and you started to hear that metallic sound, which is really cool. It's actually starting to get me a little excited. So let's bypass Nexcellence and listen to the spring reverb box at this louder part where it starts to saturate. Cool. Now let's go to Nexcellence and see if we can get a slightly cleaner sound, but still have that crazy breakup going on. Now we're driving it a little too hard, so I'm going to back off on the input gain and use a little bit less limiting. Let's see if we can still get a relatively saturated sound. Honestly, it has a very, very realistic spring sound. I'm really impressed with this. Let's make this stereo because that's one thing I can't do with my current spring reverb box. I actually need to buy a second one so I can make it stereo. So that's one plus that Nexcellence has over pretty much any normal mono spring reverb. That sounds really, really good. Let's bypass this and find a nice balance with the real spring reverb box and then do the same thing with Nexcellence. Nice and subtle. Now let's do that with Nexcellence. All right. So with that said, I think this is a pretty decent comparison. I really like Nexcellence. I think it creates the spring reverb sound, but also gives you a very studio sound. So you can fit this anywhere you want. Overall, I think this actually gives the spring reverb box a run for its money. It has stereo control. And when you make it stereo, you actually get a better sound than you do with the mono spring reverb box. Some things that I think would be really cool would be a saturation control to really drive it into it a little bit better, and maybe even like a tilt EQs just so you can shape the incoming signal going into the spring reverb box. But that's all stuff you can do in the box with routing. I really like this thing, and I think I might use it a lot more, especially on these like old vintage style recordings. With that said, that's going to be it for this video. So I'll see you guys in a few seconds. All right, so that was PSP Audioware's Nexcellence. My overall opinions are I really like this thing. I think it sounds really good, and I think it kind of has a little niche in my workflow. It fits in pretty well. I might not replace my spring reverb box. Definitely going to use this when I need to work fast and when I want to have something stereo. It's pretty cool, it's affordable, and it sounds really, really good. So, in all honesty, that's all that matters. Does it sound good? Yes. So I highly recommend grabbing a demo, checking it out. If you like it, pick it up. I like it a little bit better than the spring box that they have. And I really think this is something that you can use in your productions and mixes. So with that said, that's going to be it for this video. This is Jeremy Taylor in the DAW, and I'll see you guys next time.